Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. It is Wednesday, February 21st, and Joe Biden. Dementia Joe. The puppet, the child sniffer, the geriatric, the guy that hits a golf ball backwards, falls up a flight of stairs, looks for dead people in the crowd, converses with dead people, takes photos with people at events that were never there in the first place, fights with his teleprompter, which is 4 years undefeated now, is still the worst president in American history. Patriots, it's great to be back with you on this fine Wednesday morning. And boy, oh boy, do we have a short and sweet episode for you all today, because Democrats have showed their hand early. And it's a hand we've seen them play before. And the hand that they think won them the last election was the Russia hoax. Do you remember how they were pushing Trump's in the pocket of Putin? The Russians are running election interference. And they had Robert Mueller do that whole investigation, spending millions of dollars, of which we know was a bunch of bullshit at the end of the day. Yeah, no, they're pushing it again, you guys. I'm not kidding. Yeah, they're trying it again. They didn't learn their lesson. They're still trying to utilize the media like CNN, MSNBC, and others to push this BS. They claimed all this was misinformation, disinformation on the part of the Russians, when in actuality, it was just the Democrat Party pushing misinformation and disinformation on the American people, which is why a big swath of the country believed in the Russian hoax. So here they are again on Anderson Cooper's show, CNN, the most trustworthy news outlet out there, supposedly. They're unbiased, according to them, pushing this. Here we go again.
Not only is there no evidence of any wrongdoing by President Biden, but it now appears as if the House Republican majority is being used by Russia to interfere in the 2024 election on behalf of Donald Trump. If they continue with this investigation, they are simply doing the work of Vladimir Putin to help Donald Trump win an election in November. That's where we are.
Folks, does that not sound a lot like 2020? Well, he's working with Vladimir Putin. He wants him to win the election. Joe Biden's done nothing wrong. There's not a shred of evidence. Really? The text messages, the emails, the former business partners of Hunter Biden and the Biden family, going golfing with them, being in the Oval Office, getting information from Joe Biden himself. Let's talk about the risk that's associated with the different shell companies and the bank accounts listed under Joe Biden and his family. But you're right. No, there's not a shred of evidence, you guys, that Joe Biden's corrupt. There's none at all. Well, it wasn't just him that was pushing this. You got freaking Nancy Pelosi here on MSNBC pushing the same crap regarding the Russia hoax. Now, you're not going to be able to tell, but she's going to be smiling throughout this entire segment right now. She just had so much work done, it's impossible to notice.
What do you think? We're all wondering this question, Speaker Pelosi. What do you think Putin has on him? I mean, it sure seems like something, as you've said a few times, given that he refuses to criticize him, that he seems to be a fanboy of him. Are you worried
at all? Well, you know, during the Mueller...
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, first of all, we must be sure that he does not step 1 foot into the White House, not as president or not as anything. He has brought disgrace to the White House, to these presidents. I talked about George Washington. It's also President's Week for Abraham Lincoln. When Abraham Lincoln died, it was embroidered in his coat that night at that theater, one country, one destiny. And he gave his life to unify our country. And now we have someone who had the honor of serving in the White House, didn't consider it an honor, didn't consider his oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution. And on this week, speaking out the way he did about Navalny shows you that he is a person without values. He looks like he's going to be a person without dollars either, but the values are what concern us.
Yes, the dollars.
So I don't know what he has on him, but I think it's probably financial. I think it's probably financial, either something financial he has on or something on the come.
Jesus Christ. I mean, where do you start with that? He has no values, right? Kind of targeting the man. Look at his family compared to Joe. I mean, Joe's son was snorting crack cocaine off a prostitute's ass and off a dog's back. There's a videotape of him doing as such, him sleeping or napping with a meth pipe in his mouth. I mean, look at Joe Biden's kids compared to Donald Trump. Look at the way Joe Biden's life has been, suckling at the government teat his entire life and supposedly being a senator on behalf of the American people and now president, air quotes, because that's a loose one, compared to Donald Trump, who has started businesses, actually employed people, paid more taxes than Joe Biden ever will. I mean, it's stark differences, but oh, don't worry, you guys. Oh, he's working with the Russians again. I think it's something financial. I think it's something financial as she's trying to keep her dentures in her mouth and her face from falling off her body. It's wild that they're going to sit here and push this Russia hoax again, you guys. I mean, what's more than quadrupling down? I mean, how many years are we going to go on with the shenanigans of he's working with the Russians? Oh, he's probably in the pocket. You want to know who Joe Biden's probably in the pocket of? China. I mean, you just have a massive virus let loose in the entire globe. And he sat there on the campaign trail and looked at Donald Trump square in the face and goes, oh, China's going to eat your lunch, man. Like, where's the penalty on China, Joe? China's doing just fine. Military drills, building up their military, all the while the Democrats want to sit there and dissolve our military. Hell, they started under the Obama administration when they're closing air bases all around the United States, or at least naval weapon stations. That's for sure. It's astonishing that she's going to go on MSNBC and spew all this stuff. And then you got Jen Psaki, the other moron on there, going along with it. And then they're going to bring up the lawsuit as if it's a funny thing, going, oh, well, he's going bankrupt. So therefore, this two-tier justice system, or this double standard, or however you want to call it, right? Lady Justice not wearing the blindfold anymore, targeting Donald Trump in every which way you possibly can. And they are. I mean, they said it right out there in the open. You heard them blatant go, no, well, they're just trying to bankrupt the guy. That's their game plan. It's not to put him behind bars because they realize they can't do that anymore. They tried to impeach the guy. That didn't work anymore. So they go, well, let's just try to bankrupt him. So remember, you guys, under New York City, he's going to have to pay that money. It's not like he just throws in an appeal. He doesn't have to pay the $453 or the $350, whatever they're going to charge him, right? It was $350 million plus interest. You're looking at $453 million roughly. He has to pay that, you guys. Now, there's not many bondsmen that have just $450 million laying around. So this is what they're trying to do. They're pulling it. It's disgusting stuff. And they're terrified because they know Donald Trump is going to come back. If he's in the White House, he knows how the game is played, you guys. Donald Trump knows how the game is played. And if they think that man isn't going to get redemption, they are sorely mistaken, because Donald Trump's going to enter that White House. And you fuck around and you find out, because that man is going to open up an investigation on Joe Biden and others like we've never seen before. And if he doesn't, it's a huge mistake. So they're going to push this whole crap on us about, oh, well, you know, it's Putin, it's this and that. Well, Donald Trump responded in his town hall with Laura Ingraham about that very segment that we just watched with Nancy Pelosi, the deranged idiot that somehow got elected into office for decades by other deranged idiots in the state of California. Here's Mr. 45, hopefully Mr. 47, responding.
Your response. You said you're going to abandon NATO and Putin has something on you.
So I know the real Nancy Pelosi. She's highly overrated. Let me just tell you about Nancy. I went in.
She's highly overrated. Her face is falling off her body. It's unbelievable. I've seen her without her mask on, and let me tell you, it's freaky deaky.
It's all sound bites. You know, with them, it's all misinformation. Everything is dis and mis. Little difference.
Correct.
Dis and misinformation. I went in, got in, and I stopped Nord Stream 2. Most people don't know what that's the Russian pipeline. The most important economic deal, plus, I call it economic plus, much more than economic, ever. I stopped it. I told Germany, you're not having it. I told all of Europe, you're not having it. Anybody that wants to have it, they're not dealing with you. I ended it. That's the biggest deal ever in the history of Russia. They're going to supply Europe with oil and gas. I ended it. Biden comes in, and he vetoed what I had done. It was done. Nord Stream 2 was done, and he approved it. But he ended the Keystone Pipeline, which is our pipeline, which should have been approved.
Yeah.
When people say that about Russia, and Putin would even say to me, he said, you treat us very bad. I had sanctions on Russia that nobody's ever put there before. In fact, Biden took them off. It's just misinformation. Anybody that walked in and ended, and remember this.
I just want to correct the president. It's not misinformation, Mr. President. It is disinformation. And the difference between the two is misinformation is when you put information out there that you didn't know was incorrect. Or maybe at one point in time it was correct and then it turned out to be incorrect and you just weren't aware of it. Disinformation is where you knowingly put information out there that you know is wrong to try and push a narrative or manipulate a country. The Democrat Party did this with the Russia hoax, and they're trying to do it again. So, Mr. President, I'm sorry to correct you here. It is disinformation.
Putin took land from every president of our last 5, except for one, me. And now he's going for the big one. He's going for all of Ukraine.
No.
He's going for all of Ukraine, not just a little piece. He's going for all, and that's under Biden.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
Look, he's not wrong. Trump was strong against Russia. Biden is weak against Russia. The actions speak louder than the words, you guys. I mean, look at what Russia invaded Ukraine. None of that happened under Donald Trump. It's funny how all this stuff happens under Joe Biden, and then the blame gets put on Trump somehow when none of it happened under Trump in the first place. It's wild. The economy, they blamed on Trump. The border crisis, they blamed on Trump. The Russia invading Ukraine, they blamed on Trump. China growing stronger, they blamed on Trump. I mean, everything you guys, honestly, and I really do believe this, almost everything this administration has come out with, meaning the Biden administration, has been just blaming Trump. And so you have this massive problem taking place at the border with Russia, Ukraine, and all these things, but they're going to blame Donald Trump. Now, I don't know if you caught in all that of, oh, well, there's no evidence of election fraud in 2020. It's the Russians. It was all this BS stuff that they were spewing. We covered it yesterday. What do you mean there was no election fraud? You have Americans openly admitting to election fraud right here. We covered it in yesterday's episode. A lot of new subscribers, by the way, that saw that episode. Welcome. Everybody in the live chat, welcome our new subscribers. Welcome aboard. 21% of mail-in voters admitted that in 2020 they voted in a state where they no longer were permanent residences. They voted for friends and family members. They filled out ballots illegally. So 20% on average did something illegal, 1/5. And we found through this Rasmussen research that actually would have swung the election in key states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, in favor of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the one that should be sitting in office right now. But as we've mentioned, they were calling all these recounts audits. They weren't audits. We wanted a forensic accounting audit in there by a third party to look at the signatures, where these people actually lived, and actually discount both Trump votes as well as Biden votes for those that should have never been accepted in the first place. Clearly, you could tell by the signatures whether somebody was legitimate or not legitimate. And you know what? If you don't sign it the way that it should have been signed, then you forfeit your right to vote at the end of the day. Your signature should line up with the signature of which you always sign with. But if it doesn't, hey, you know what? Fix it next time then. I don't care if you're a Trump supporter. If it doesn't line up, X nay out A. So we know what actually took place, but what they're going to try to feed us and what they started to do by showing their hand early, because it's only February. I expected this in, I don't know, April, May-ish of pushing some sort of BS. Nope, folks, they're already starting it right now with this Russia stuff. Russia. They're going to continue to push it regarding all this because that's all they have. And they're freaking out. And it's not just Democrats freaking out. It's Joe Biden freaking out. Because a CNN reporter said Biden told his campaign to highlight the crazy shit that Trump says in public. Now, Joe, I hate to tell you, you say a lot of crazy stuff too. And if it's not crazy, it's just, you can't understand what the hell you're saying because you don't even know what you're saying, Joe. So a CNN reporter said during a live broadcast on Tuesday that President Joe Biden has instructed his campaign to be aggressive in highlighting the crazy bleep that Trump says in public as the race for the White House heats up. You're not going to get, look, Trump does say some silly ass things, but there's a difference between saying silly things compared to incoherent things, losing your train of thought, completely taking massive mental gaps in your statement to try to figure out what the hell is going on. I've always speculated there's an earpiece in that man's ear. I've always speculated. Kind of odd. So Robert M.J. Lee, or reporter rather, who was behind the network's report in 2018 that claimed that Senator Bernie Sanders told Elizabeth Warren that a woman couldn't win the presidency, made the remarks after suggesting at the start of this week that House Republicans had the blood of deceased Russian opposition leader, that reporter, on their hands. Quote, President Biden himself personally instructed some of his top campaign aides to be more aggressive in highlighting some of the President Trump's more inflammatory and or wild comments. And you know what they're going to do with that, you guys? They're going to spin it. Remember, the same party that was spreading misinformation and disinformation through the entirety of the Trump campaign is going to be doing the same thing. The theme of today's episode is the Democrats playing their hand too early here. They're showing us what they're going to do. This is what the next year is going to look like until November, until election. They're going to sit there and push Russia. They're going to sit there and say Trump is corrupt. Look at all the civil lawsuits. Look at him being impeached. Look at January 6th. Oh, by the way, look at these inflammatory and wild comments. Oh, he's racist. He's a bigot. He's a sexist. He's a homophobe. All these things are going to start coming out, folks. The lying is going to happen at levels you've never seen before. We're told that the thrust of the president's direction was to significantly ramp up the campaign's efforts to highlight the crazy bleep that Trump says in public. Joe, why don't you look in a mirror, buddy? Why don't you look in a mirror and just pick any day of the week that you've wanted to in the last 3.5 years, and we'll find some crazy stuff that you said. Trigger amount of pressure. I don't even know how the hell we can incorporate the other endless clips into this show. We've all seen them. The guy's senile. He walks around the White House naked with a CPAP machine still hooked up to him. But it goes on here to say, you know, we've been seeing, of course, for a while, the Biden campaign trying to highlight what they see as the black and white contrast between President Biden and former President Trump on everything, including their temperament, their worldviews, their policies. And as the Biden campaign is making this pivot to a general election, this reporting seems to show that President Biden himself believes that it is incredibly important to make sure that they are really leaning into painting the former president as being unhinged and unfit for office. Let that sink in. Please let that sink in, that last sentence. The former president as being unhinged and unfit to hold office. They tried this when Trump was in office. As I mentioned, the famous one, there's actually two, where he was like shaking a little bit, slightly shaking because he was taking a drink of water. They wanted to pull the 25th Amendment. And I remember when he slid down, just slightly kind of slipped foot on the ramp. I think he was leaving a speech because it was iced up. It had been either raining and then it froze over. So he slipped a little bit. But when Joe Biden falls asleep mid-interview, loses his train of thought all the time, forgets words, fumbles with his teleprompter, fights with his teleprompter, looks for dead people in the crowd, converses with dead people in meetings like the G7 summit, takes photos with people that never existed in the first place. It sounds so insane. I understand. Y'all need to understand. I know the frequent viewers here do. There's a lot of Americans that think this is satire, that I'm making this up. This all really happened. Everything I'm displaying. The dude really did hit a golf ball backwards. He really did fall up a flight of stairs multiple times. He really did fall off a bicycle sitting stationary. He does get lost all the time. His White House aides are terrified he's going to trip over a camera cable in the Oval Office and break a hip. When I say it, I understand how crazy it sounds coming out of my mouth. I fully am aware of it, but it's all real. And so this dude's going to say that Donald Trump is unhinged and unfit to hold office. The balls to be able to say that is insane. I mean, the montage we showed just yesterday of Democrats all saying Joe Biden's sharp. They're all coming out of the woodwork. Russia, Russia, Russia. Joe Biden's sharp. He's fit to hold office. I've never seen so much stamina in a gentleman before. It's insane how much energy this guy has. I could barely keep up even though I'm 1/4 his age. It's wild. And so when Donald Trump says, yeah, I've been harsh on Russia, my entire administration harsher than Joe Biden's ever been. Oh, it's fake news. It's not real. This is what they're going to do, you guys. They're going to play you like you're an idiot, and we're not going to allow them to do that here on the Bald Brad Show. We're going to be on top of it, more on top of it than we ever been. This is the shenanigans they're going to pull. Quote, now, we reached out to the Biden campaign for comment for this story. The Biden campaign's rapid response director said, in part, that Donald Trump is a polar opposite of everything that President Biden stands for, and that the stark contrast is one that they're going to continue to highlight. Yeah, it is a pretty stark contrast. Not much illegal immigration happening. Prosperous economy taking place. No foreign wars. Peace in the Middle East. Like, yeah, you are right. They are complete opposites. Donald Trump is just resoundingly better than Joe Biden. And somehow they're still going to vote for this idiot, Joey. They're going to vote for this guy. I see your guys' comments. Neil, you just posted a comment the other day asking, seriously, how the hell can anybody vote for Joe Biden? Brother, I am right there with you. I am right there, and so are all of us. I literally can't wrap my head around it. Like, there's nobody else in the Democrat Party in the United States that can run. Wild stuff. So Joe is going to be heading to California soon. And there's some speculation that he's going to be talking to a real person this time, not a dead person, but talking to Gavin Newsom, and speculation that maybe Gavin Newsom's going to be VP and Kamala Harris is out, or that Joe Biden's going to drop out in March and Gavin Newsom's going to slither his way in there. Now, speaking about that, California is in a massive budget crisis, and it's worse than Newsom projected, as state watchdog warns deficit could reach a record, and I almost threw up just saying this, $73 billion. You have like the third largest economy in the world in like a state, and you have a deficit of $73 billion. I've always mentioned, you guys, somehow in the Democrat Party, when you suck at your job horribly, like you run a locality or state right into the freaking ground, that makes you eligible to be president. Look at Barack Obama. Wasn't he like the senator of Illinois or something like that? Just drove it right into the ground. That elevated him to the highest levels of office, and he destroyed this country from the inside out as well. A lot of what we're seeing nowadays is just basically starting from the Obama era and carrying forward. And look where we're at now. $34 trillion in debt. Wars happening all over the world. Nobody getting along. All the while because Barack Obama was in office. And you got Donald Trump trying to fix things. And now you got freaking Joe Biden there. So you have Kamala Harris running California. I believe she was a senator, vice president. Joe Biden was a senator. He sucked. President. Gavin Newsom driving California into the ground. He sucks. So there is a common theme here. If you suck at your job, you're going to be elevated in the Democrat Party. Jen Psaki, she sucks at her job. We just saw her with Nancy Pelosi. She got elevated to, secretary to speak on behalf of the President of the United States. Then who was the next press secretary? Oh, Karine Jean-Pierre. She sucks too. Hasn't answered a single question in her entire time working there. So California's budget crisis is projected to expand more than previously thought and could hit a record deficit of $73 billion, according to a new report from the state's nonpartisan legislative analyst office. Just let me get this next paragraph out, and I'm going to make a connection because there's a common theme here with Democrats of bullshitting us to our face all the time. So the legislative analyst office laid out the grim forecast on Tuesday. Their report that cautions that a $24 billion erosion in revenues corresponds to a $15 billion increase in the state's budget problem. And so we're going around going, oh, it's only $58 billion loss. We're at a $58 billion deficit. Nope, sorry. $73 billion, you suckers. And it's going to go up. It always goes up. These are conservative numbers. And why do I want to bring this up? Not only because Joe Biden's going to California, meeting with Gavin Newsom for God only knows why, but I also want to point out, this is very reminiscent of being lied to by Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary, the guy that's in charge of the border, when he was going, not many people are coming in, the border's secure. And then when you twist his arm and then you finally find out, and basically they're looking at you and kicking you in the nuts, 85% of illegal immigrants are being released, above that, by the way, into the interior of the United States. 85% of illegal immigrants are being released into the interior of the United States. Terrorists, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, child trafficking, fentanyl, cartel, violent gang members, if I didn't already mention that one, terrorist, I know I mentioned that one, but it's unbelievable it's still happening. So it's astonishing how there's a common theme here with the Democrat Party of telling us one thing, but then the more digging that we actually do, we get a total nother thing. I mean, again, with the Russia hoax, them playing their card early, they sat there and go, Russia, Russia, Russia. They pushed their misinformation out, so a lot of Americans believed it. And then after they do an investigation by Robert Mueller, wasting millions of taxpayer dollars that could have went to our veterans or somebody else, it comes out that it was all a hoax. It was all bullshit. It was all make-believe. It was wrong. Fuck, I mean, even the FBI paid off an informant to say something on behalf to push a narrative of the Democrat Party. Now, we're not going to rehash the whole thing here regarding the Russia hoax, the Russia collusion, that whole BS. But folks, they're going to try to do it again. You had to sit there and push to get the information out there to the American people that it was all BS. In the same way, we had to push to get the actual numbers here from DHS Secretary that they're allowing illegal immigrants in the interior of the country, which took us 3 years to get that information. We've been working here for 3 years on the Bald Brad Show to get the actual information from that gentleman's mouth right there. In the same way, we've been working for a long time to try to get the real deficit number from this nut job down here that wants to be the next president of the United States and run this country into the ground. If you think $34 trillion is a lot of money, wait till you get another Democrat in office like Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom here to run that bad boy up. If they can't run a state, do you really think they can run the federal government, folks, the executive branch? I don't think so. Not one bit. Hell, again, they can't run their states, which is why Massachusetts here is paying $64 to feed each migrant a day. New York City was like $11 a day to feed migrants. Massachusetts is spending $64 a day for each migrant to feed them. Folks, Massachusetts is Democrat ran. A bunch of libs run the area. Why? Because they can't govern. They don't know how to do it. They just love spending your money and giving it to people that aren't Americans, like Iran, like Hezbollah, Hamas, all these other illegal immigrants. Hell, you name it. If you're not an American, you're getting American taxpayer dollars on behalf of the Democrat Party. So Massachusetts is spending roughly $64 per day to feed each migrant seeking asylum, air quotes, seeking asylum, in the sanctuary state. You got to love that. So they self-proclaim that they're a sanctuary state, they're a right to shelter state, and yet their infrastructure is collapsing in the magnitude of New York City and Chicago. The news outlets team obtained vendor contracts for various migrant services, including 17 contracts for hotel and motel stays, totaling more than $116 million for fiscal year 2024. Folks, you have to understand, go, oh, well, that's not that bad. It's $116 million. You have veterans living on the streets. You have Americans living on the streets, and they're putting these people up in hotels and motels and paying for their food. Americans can't even get that. We're being reamed at the gas pump, reamed at the grocery store, reamed on inflation. We can't even pay our bills. We don't get rental assistance. I rent. I don't get any assistance. Hey, if you're an illegal immigrant, hey, here's $9,000 of rental assistance. Oh, and by the way, here's $84,000 a year. Yes, you heard that correctly, because we got a lot of new subscribers. Migrants are getting paid $84,000 a year. How many of you make 84 grand a year? If you do, you're making good moolah in Bidenomics. We got a nice membership tab over here. I had to. Hey, we got an awesome community of patriots here, folks. We really do. We're a small community, but damn, we are growing, and we are one of the best communities. I've always said this, little random tangent here. This is a community that I wanted to build, of patriots that get along, know each other in the chat, say good morning, because we're at a level of which other people are not, maybe. We have a damn good audience of patriots here on the Bald Brad Show. It goes on here to say, Massachusetts State Republican Senator Peter Durant told WBZ that lawmakers have been asking Democratic Governor Maura Healey's administration for more information regarding migrant-related costs. Oh, God. Wasn't this just the theme I was referring to? You got to twist their arm to get any sort of information from them? Oh, what was he doing? Oh, we're trying to get more information on related migrant costs because, man, $64 a day seems kind of maybe a little bit cheap. It might be more than that. So this 116 is going to be way more, you guys. Don't listen to a damn thing Democrats tell you. It's going to be way more than $116 million. In addition to collecting taxpayer funds for housing accommodations, some hotels are being paid to provide migrants with 3 meals a day. What does that sound like? We covered this and got our video taken down by YouTube. Oh, it was New York City. New York City did the same thing. 3 meals a day. By the way, those meals were catered to of which country you're coming from. So if you're coming from El Salvador, your 3 meals a day are coming from or are different than another country, say China, of which you're fleeing from, air quotes. So in the same way, New York City was giving them bedding. It's going to sound like I'm making this up, but I'm not. Bedding, coffee tables, rugs, sofas, plasma TVs, laundry services, recreational services. They were getting mugs, 3-course meals catered to whatever country they're coming from, air conditioning. I mean, Xboxes were in there as well. All this stuff completely for free. While we have people living on the streets, they get taken better care than actual Americans do. $64 a day for meals. Guys, hand to God, how many of you spend $64 a day on meals? We're struggling to buy groceries here. 2 days of meals is the amount of grocery bills for a lot of Americans in a single week. I don't know how much you guys spend on grocery bills, I ain't spending $64 a day on food. That's for damn sure. They're eating better than me. And it seems like I'm joking when I'm saying that. I'm not. They're spending more money on migrants than they are actual Americans spending on themselves. But why would you not? When somebody else is footing the bill, and who's footing the bill? Oh, all of us are footing the bill. Of course, of course. Hotels are charging $16 for breakfast, $16 for lunch, $31 for dinner a day. They're getting $31 a day for dinner. Fuck, I can't even go to In-N-Out for like $20. In other words, the state is paying $64 per pay for each illegal immigrant. It's only going to go up, you guys. It's only going to go up. Documents obtained by the news outlet revealed that the manufacturing company, a catering company, was awarded a $10 million 6-month no-bid contract from the state. Oh my God. Just money out the door. Money out the door. Joe Biden has really created multi-billion-dollar businesses. When he says he created 14 million new jobs, he wasn't shitting, folks. Except the jobs are just on the other side of the border. That's the thing. They're cartels, sex traffickers, drug traffickers. Those are the 14 million he created. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about American jobs. They're talking about jobs on the other side of the border and all across the world. Terrorists being recruited. You just saw Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are being uplifted now in Afghanistan because the nut job Joe Biden wanted to pull out too early and didn't understand how actually anything worked in terms of foreign policy. But no, he's supposed to be the president again. And again, as we mentioned, we're just repeating it here, pushing Russia hoax. Russia, 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 according to the Democrat Party. And if that wasn't the only thing happening in Massachusetts, this one's is just bonkers, especially as an educator. Massachusetts schools officials ask for National Guard to come into their high school to keep it safe. The Democrat Party has ran our education system so far into the ground, and I'm not exaggerating this one fucking bit. Excuse my French, but it pisses me off. Have ran it so far into the ground. These libs are so far off their rocker that our education system has deteriorated so bad that you can't expel somebody, you can't suspend anybody, you can't put anybody in detention anymore. And now they're asking for the National Guard to come into these schools because it is so chaotic, it is so disruptive, and I've experienced it before, that you can't actually do your job, you can't actually learn because you can't remove these kids from the classroom for being disruptive because everybody needs to have an equal education. Everybody needs to be treated the same. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand. Oh, awesome. So that one kid can be disruptive. Screw 35 other kids in the classroom because now they can't learn in an environment that's inclusive to learning. And so we need to sit there and make sure we cater to that one kid that wants to be disruptive and doing heinous crimes inside, whether it's the school or the classroom or being malicious or bullying people or doing whatever. We need to cater to that one kid and screw everybody else. That's basically how the education system is working nowadays. And I'm not exaggerating one damn bit. So violence and drug use at one Massachusetts school have reached such proportions that the school's asking the governor to send the freaking National Guard to the school. A majority of members of the Brockton School Committee, 4 out of 7, favored asking the National Guard despite the fact that personally opposition or opposed the decision. Brockton Mayor Robert Sullivan, who chairs the committee, forwarded the request to the governor. Folks, you have basically a dire situation here in a school going, we can't handle this. There's no consequences for these kids anymore. And people think I'm joking when I'm saying this. I'm being as literal as I possibly can be. No consequences when it comes to actions, when it comes to grades, anything. They get away with everything in the education system now. If you think the education system looks like how you and I were taught when we grew up, you are sorely freaking mistaken. As somebody that was a public accountant, switched careers into teaching, night and day, hear it from me. I'm never here to bullshit you guys. You need to please understand this. It is night and day. You would not recognize a freaking high school classroom if you walked into one. They might be good for you that day, but you have to understand, it is chaos. It is not what it used to be. And I need to be clear on that. And you're hearing that from an educator right now. It is insane. They need to put the National Guard in there. The sad thing is, you put the National Guard in there, it's not going to change anything because that's how off the chain these kids are in these schools. The left has destroyed every major institution in this country, and I fully believe that. I would put my hand on a Bible saying I believe that. So much so, I wrote a book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Buy it or not, I don't care. I wrote a book on it because I firmly believe it, that they are destroying this country, They will continue to destroy this country until you and I, the parents, the adults, actually stand up and say enough is enough. And until then, teachers are going to be harassed. Teachers are going to be bullied. They're being stabbed in the school systems. They're being shot in the school systems. There's fights breaking out. So all this is happening on a daily basis to the point where now teachers are just not showing up to work. Why would you? Why would you? And I want to end it off with this, with an actual story. I got a buddy that works in Nevada, and I'm going to keep things kind of loosey-goosey here because I told him I wouldn't reveal his name and all these things. This teacher in Nevada, I've known him for a lot of years, was in the classroom, teaches, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but teaches, we'll say 5th grade. Found out there was kids plotting to kill him in the classroom. Actual plotting, like 300 messages were found showing how they were going to do it, when they were going to do it, what part of the body they were going to shoot on him, what days they were, all this stuff. He had the evidence. The school didn't do anything. The DA did not prosecute these kids. They were never removed. They were still in his classroom when he returned. He quit the day of. He didn't go back. That's how you have to understand how bad it is. And that's how bad it is, you guys. You can have an actual threat, documented proof of killing a fucking teacher, and nothing will happen to these kids anymore. And then the left is baffled when shit happens like this. And you're damn right I'm cussing, because we've done such a poor job of handling our education system as Americans, as parents, that you have this happening all over the place. It is not just these ransacked places that are being Democrat ran. It's also conservative places as well. And we allowed it to happen, you guys. Thank God my place of employment is amazing. Thank God the place that I work, I don't deal with these shenanigans. You couldn't pay me 6 figures. A school tried. You couldn't pay me 6 freaking figures to deal with the shenanigans in the school district. I would go back into accounting before I ever dealt with a school system like that. But it's happening all over the country. They're having a shortage of teachers. They can't keep up with the schools. They can't keep up with the behavior problems. Why? Because there's no consequences for these kids. And if you think I'm joking, I'm not joking whatsoever. It's insane and it's bad. Speaking of children, we're going to end off with this article right here. Indiana parents warn nation after child is removed from home for improper pronoun usage can happen anywhere. We said it was going to happen, and it is. We heard it from Libs at TikTok. Fox News covered it. Tucker Carlson covered it. Ben Shapiro covered it. Ben Shapiro got flack for saying, if you try to come and take my child from my home because of pronoun usage or whatever, you're going to be met with guns. And the left lost their bleep. Why? Because the left want to trans your kids. The left want to indoctrinate your kids with critical race theory. They want to teach them how to masturbate, use butt plugs, all this other weird shit in the classroom, rather than arithmetic, reading. There's a reason why the majority of American children don't know how to read. They're all behind grade levels. You have a senior in your classroom, guaranteed they're not reading at grade level. They're not even at math at grade level, science or anything like that. They can't pass simple exams, you guys. Now, you can love the students all you want. You have a great relationship, as I do with mine, but that doesn't mean there's a massive issue inside the education system that nobody wants to talk about. One of these is this right here, that your kids are being indoctrinated, they're going home, and they want to be called Jane when in actuality they're Jack, and now you don't want to call them by their preferred pronoun because at birth you named them, you raised them, and you know what they are, and so now because they were indoctrinated and you're not calling what they want, Child Protective Services, now they're out of the house. Exactly what happened right here. A Catholic couple in Indiana is asking the Supreme Court to hold the state accountable for keeping their child out of their home after they detained the use his chosen name, either they declined rather to use his chosen name and pronoun. In MC and JC versus Indiana, a Department of Child Services, Mary and Jeremy Cox are appealing the Supreme Court after they were investigated by Indiana officials for refusing to use their son using refer to their son using pronouns and a name inconsistent with the biological sex. Now, if you're a teacher in the classroom, I know without a doubt that you could be fired for using the wrong pronouns, even if you're not aware of them. And you might be going, well, Brad, how does that even make sense? That was my question, and a lot of other people in that training. How could you be fired for not calling somebody by the correct pronoun when you don't even know the pronoun yourself? Or you call them by the wrong name because, again, they're biologically a Jack. The name that's listed in Aries is Jack, but they go by some other name, Jennifer, and you don't call them Jennifer. So now you're getting a write-up on you for bullying or some sort of harassment nowadays, some sort of discrimination, when you didn't know in the first place because nobody fucking told you. Nobody told you. The parents don't know. You don't know. only the kid and the school psychologist knows, because the school is sitting there trying to groom them and help trans your kid to something of which they're not, and you have no idea that it's actually happening. Turns out your kid's actually in a club at school of which you don't know about. The administration claims they don't know about it because it's off the books. All this is happening. We've covered all of it. So much so that, again, we were actually on an old show back in the day for like 5 seconds regarding all this stuff. But it's wild. And yeah, I'm worked up, you guys, because all this stuff is happening and the left is destroying this country. And at what moment in time do we actually stand up at Republicans and conservatives, hell, just Americans in general, and say enough is enough? You know what I mean? Like, enough is enough. Where are the adults? The libs are not adults, you guys. The libs think they can change sex. The libs think, even though they're a biological male, that they can be a woman. Why the hell are we listening to people like that? They're off their rocker. I'm not saying we shouldn't show them respect, be kind. That's not what I'm saying. Why am I going to listen to anything somebody has to say when they got a wahoo between their legs? They're telling me they're a woman straight to my face. Why would I listen to you on anything? You need to seek help. I want you to be mentally fit. You're not. I'm not. Again, I could have friends that are probably trans. You can love them to death, take care of them, help them, guide them, be friends with them. But why would I listen to them seriously when they're telling me one thing and they want me to live in a false reality when I know what real reality looks like? I think you all understand what I'm saying. I'm going off on random tangents here, but damn, I thought we were going to have a little short, sweet show, and we're going on friggin' 45 minutes right now. Woo, baby. Have a little bit of sip of coffee here because, well, I just wanted to plug the mug. I mean this in all honesty. Right now, the merch is, there's no profit off of it. Just grab one so you can drink out of a mug with all of us. If you want to add a little bit of whiskey, Bailey's in the morning, nobody's going to blame you because Joe Biden's in office. So this is not tea. This is actual coffee. I'm almost done with it. There it is. All American brew. But with that being said, folks, if you enjoyed our show, think about hitting that like button. If you love the episode, if you love the community of patriots that we got here, regulars all the time, they would love for you to join our community, as would I. So if you enjoyed this video, if you love this video, if you like what you saw, and you think that we earned your subscription, we would love to have you. With that being said, folks, I'll see you tomorrow here on The Ball Brad Show.